Get up, stand up for your rights. I don't know. We'll see if we can do that. Welcome to the Tuesday Back Porch edition of Divas 2 Radio. I'm Fran Jones, and Michelle Renee is here with me. We're going to continue with a very interesting discussion that we started last Tuesday with Dr. David B. Allen, who is a cannaboid research scientist, and he's also a cardio-thoracic surgeon. He gave us some great information. Unfortunately, whatever can go wrong will go wrong, and we had some serious technical difficulties. But tonight, I doubt if we'll have any, although at airtime we were on the back porch. And as soon as they said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it started to rain. So that's why you got to hear quite a bit of Bob Marley's Stand Up for Your Rights, because we had to stand up and run into the room next to the back porch. But we're here, and we're going to talk with Dr. Allen, because marijuana or cannabis, whatever you want to call it, is a medicinal herb, and it has been criminalized, and there is so much it can do to help people in their everyday living. You know that herbs are your medicine, and they also are your food. And there is no herb on earth that can hurt you unless you use too much. Anything that you use too much of, yes, can be destructive. But you need to understand the medicinal use of herb. And Dr. David B. Allen is on the line with us now, and he's the one to talk to you about it. Dr. Allen.
Yes, hello.
Hi. You know, you heard what I just said. We had to scramble off the back porch because as soon as the countdown came, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it started to rain. So what can I say? You started a great conversation last week with us about cannabis, and I think I was the only one between you and I, the only one that heard all of the show, because a lot of it was cut off because of technical difficulties, and it was most unfortunate. And I've had people tell me or call me all week and say, well, we didn't hear but so much. I said, well, he'll be back this week. And so
thank you for having me.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, please, Dr. Allen, as we were talking before the show, you need to get this information out to other people. You know, there are things that cannabis can help with, maybe possibly even be a cure for, but because of the restrictions placed by the government, we're all at a disadvantage to its use. So I read your article, Cannabis, God's Medicine. You want to explain that to us?
Well, I wrote that from prison in Mississippi as I was accused falsely of a cannabis crime, and I narrowly escaped from their clutches. When I was in prison, I was able to read the Bible 9 times cover to cover. And a couple things caught my attention. And it says in the very first page of the Bible, in Genesis 1:29, it says, "And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed on the face of the earth, and for you it shall be for meat." And in Genesis 1:30, it says, I have given you every green herb for meat. And then I had heard that before, but I read on in Romans 14:2, it says, and some can eat all things, others who are weak eat herbs. And 14:3 says, and let those that eat herbs not despise those that don't, and let those that don't eat herbs not judge those that do. And so from that, I believe that cannabis is God's medicine. I believe it can be abused and can be used wrong, like anything else on Earth.
Exactly.
But it's safer than any man-made medicine. It's safer than aspirin. It's safer than Tums. It's safer than table salt. And a lot of people use it for a bunch of different reasons. And in California, it's their legal right. If they use one medicine for sleep or something, and they can use cannabis for the same reason, and if cannabis doesn't hurt them, then they're justifiable to use cannabis in California. In other states, they can lock you up for the same activity.
Exactly.
So we're still in an exciting time in the world. I think cannabis is going to be legalized fairly soon. And I think the reason is because the government was able to put out a lot of disinformation about cannabis, and prior to the last 20 years or so, it was near impossible to prove their accusations wrong. And since the Internet has come out, and we're spreading information not just in the United States but around the world, a lot of these lies that the government told are being exposed.
And
as it should be. As it should be. I think we're living in a really exciting time.
Is not always honest with us. And even when it's honest, it's only usually in half-truths. They don't tell you all of anything. Last week when we were talking, you said something that has stuck with me all week, and it made me do a little reading and a little bit more research. You were saying that marijuana was a high antioxidant, and it does help to slow down the aging process in people who use it medicinally?
That's correct. That's proven. That's proven in studies, and the United States have a patent on cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. And cannabinoids are just a bunch of different chemicals, all kind of related to the parent compound of THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. So there's a lot of other cannabinoids, chemicals that are similar to THC, and most of them do not have any euphoric effects. They don't get you high, but they have medicinal effects.
Right, and I know that a lot of Americans, particularly veterans, suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, and on the listings of what marijuana does and what it relieves, I noticed post-traumatic stress disorder. And some of the drugs used for that,
Go ahead.
So some of the psychotropic drugs that are used for post-traumatic stress disorder have some horrific side effects.
Yes. Well, recently the Veterans Administration has admitted that cannabis does help people with PTSD, post-traumatic stress, and and the AMA has recently made statements that they believe that cannabis does have medicinal qualities, and that the scheduling should be revised to a new schedule that would allow scientific research on cannabis. And that's really my soapbox that I want to stand on, is the fact that the scheduling of cannabis as a Schedule I medicine prevents scientific study of this. And there's a lot of reasons for this, and I kind of went through them last week, but I'll kind of mention them briefly. When there was a guy named Harry Anslinger, who was originally a prohibitionist, an alcohol prohibitionist. And just at the ending of alcohol prohibition in 1935 or so, he was actually looking for a new job, and what he did was he came upon marijuana, and he demonized the marijuana, and he was a racist, and he testified before Congress in 1937 that marijuana made white women seek relationships with black men. And at the time, this was just like a weapon of mass destruction, and scared everybody, and was one of the reasons why cannabis was made illegal. But what happened was Mayor LaGuardia of New York tricked Harry Anslinger into providing marijuana for a research project. And what Mayor LaGuardia did was he got a group of scientists and doctors together to study marijuana, and the only legal source of marijuana at the time was Harry Anslinger, and so Harry Anslinger provided this study group with marijuana to study. And after a 3-year study, they basically proved that marijuana was not harmful. It didn't cause you to be psychotic. It didn't cause you to rape and pillage and plunder. And it had no effects on the organs and was just safe. And when this report came out, when LaGuardia's report came out, it upset Harry Anslinger so bad that he knew that if he ever let anybody scientifically study marijuana, that they would come up with the same conclusions, and therefore he had to do everything he could to prevent the scientific study of marijuana. And this has carried over since 1937 and still remains today. The National Institute of Drug Abuse and the NIH only allow studies that want to study the adverse effects of marijuana and don't really fund any studies that are for the medicinal benefits of marijuana. So basically, some information in the United States is illegal to obtain and hold. It's propaganda at its finest moment, really, the way that it's illegal to study marijuana. And you can study just about any other dangerous substance. You can study explosives with the proper credentials. You can study anthrax and other biological weapons. You can study any kind of chemotherapeutic agent that you can think of, but you can't study marijuana. And so I want the government to justify not studying cannabis because it's safe. And they can't come up with a justification for disallowing scientific study of this remarkable medicine.
Dr. Allen, the LaGuardia study, is that available to the public at this time?
I'm sure it's online. Absolutely, you'd be able to look it up. It's in the history books. It was done, I think, in the early 40s. So, I would say like 39 through 42, I think was when it was done. I can't recall offhand. But there's been several government-funded studies about marijuana, and every one of them basically came up with the same conclusion that cannabis does show medicinal qualities and is not harmful to people. And I want the government to justify not allowing scientists to study marijuana.
Well, Dr. Allen, we have a couple of callers on the line right now, and what I'd like to do is pull them back in and allow them to be able to ask questions. And then also,
Sure.
if you please expound on the theory about white women taking this drug and then being induced or persuaded or seduced by the drug to be with black men. That almost sounds like a racist issue now.
That's what he said.
So
that's
I would
exactly
love
what it
to
was.
expound on that when we come back from our commercial break.
Sure.
We'll be back in a moment.
Give it up. Ain't no use. I can't help myself if I wanted to. I'm hung up, no doubt. I'm so in love with you. For me, there's no way out. Cause deeper and deeper in love with you, I'm falling. Love you, just a little more, babe. I'm gonna need you, need you. Every day, yeah. I'm gonna want you.
We're back. You're listening to Divas 2 Radio, and this is the Tuesday Back Porch Edition. I'm Fran Jones with Michelle Renee. This afternoon we have Dr. David B. Allen. Dr. Allen.
Hello.
Hi. I'm glad you're here with us. And when we left, we had a couple of questions for you, and we also had a couple of callers on the line. So I'm going to bring one of our callers in at this time. And let's see. All right, caller, Vernon, are you there?
Yes, I'm still here. How you doing?
I'm fine. Did you have anything that you wanted to say or to ask Dr. Allen while we have him this evening?
Well, I didn't originally, but I will ask this one question because he mentioned the study was done back in the late 30s, early 40s. Let's fast forward to present day. It doesn't take much imagination, I would imagine, Doctor, that today the pharmaceuticals have a lot to do with why the government is not performing that study.
Well, the pharmaceutical companies, they don't have anything really to do with it except, I mean, it's Schedule 1, so that means you can't study it. But what they do is they do contribute contributions to the politicians to, keep it illegal, yes. Because they know that, for instance, if they make sleeping pills, that cannabis is better than any sleeping pill that's made by humans. It's better than any anti-anxiety medicine made by man. It has a lot of advantages over anti-inflammatory medicines, Motrin, aspirin, Tylenol, and other medicines in that category. So they know basically that they're going to lose a large amount of money when people start growing this medicine in their own backyards. Mm-hmm. And they won't have to be paying large amounts of money for something that they can obtain for little or nothing in the backyard. So
well, that does make sense. Now,
I hope that answers your question, Vernon.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, it interferes with Wall Street. Seriously.
It does. There's no question. I wanted to expound a little bit, if I could, on this question you asked me about the antioxidants of cannabinoids.
Please.
And the United States has a patent 6,630,507 on cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants, and this was given out in 1999. And the Department of Health and Human Services has this patent. And what this patent shows that in these studies that they gave a couple of different cannabinoids to rats. What they did was they put a ligature around the middle cerebral artery of the rat's brain. And they closed it off for about 15 minutes, and then they opened the artery, and they allowed the blood to reperfuse in this area of infarct. And what happens is when the new blood goes into that area, it releases a lot of oxygen-free radicals in the dead tissue, and the oxygen-free radicals cause an increase in the size of the injury. So it's called a reperfusion injury. And what they did was they treated these rats with THC and cannabidiol separately, and in both cases, if the rats were given either of these cannabinoids, the size of their stroke was decreased by 50%. And I can tell you, no other medicine is given today that will even decrease the stroke size by 2%. As a neuroprotectant anyway. They are giving clot busters, which help limit the size of the stroke. But apparently what they found in this patent was THC inhibits this neurotransmitter called glutamate production. And whenever you have an infarct, a brain attack, a stroke, what happens is the brain that's dying releases this neurotransmitter called glutamate, and that causes increased death of cells. It causes calcium to go into the cells, and the calcium kills the cells. And so what this patent shows is that the government knows that at least cannabidiol is extremely safe in high doses and doesn't cause a euphoria, doesn't get you high. And so they know that a medicine that doesn't get you high and as is extremely safe and reduces strokes by 50%, and they're not giving this to patients in the emergency room. They're not even doing any clinical trials on this because it's illegal to do clinical trials on this. So the government knows they have something that could help patients, but they're deliberately not allowing it to be used. And so I want the American public to understand that cannabis has wonderful medical usage, and the government knows it, and the government is deliberately preventing your family from benefiting from this medicine. So I hope that cleared things up about the cannabis as a neuroprotectant and antioxidant. So basically, what happens is when you have a stroke and the blood goes back in that area, the oxygen breaks off into 2 oxygen atoms. Instead of O2, it's 2 oxygen atoms, and they are highly reactive, and they attack your own body. They attack your cell membrane, and they attack DNA. And so this oxidative process actually ages you. And cannabis stops the production of oxygen-free radicals, and then also, once they're produced, it scavenges them. So cannabis has an antioxidant effect and protects you from oxidative metabolism. So it doesn't make you younger, but it does prevent you from aging. So I think that's a miracle in itself. Are you there, Fran? Hello?
Fran?
Fran?
Sorry about that. I'm there. I'm here.
Okay.
Drop the mic. I dropped the mic. There are millions and millions of dollars on the open market today that are marketed toward not only women but men for revitalization and slowing down the aging process. Yet there is something that's natural, and we should have access to it that would slow down the aging process that's a high antioxidant, and we cannot use it because of our government. And you would think that they would want to release anything that would help with our health conditions, because there are a lot of us who no longer have health coverage and insurance, and there will be even more in the future because we can't afford it. So we need to look to natural ways of keeping our health up to healing. But I don't know. As long as the general public does not understand what's going on, and then we will all be in a hole. And that's where we are now.
Right.
Cannabis is an excellent herb. It really is. It's an excellent herb. And every part of it is useful.
And it has a lot of different mechanisms of action. Usually a drug will have just one mechanism of action. And so, for instance, aspirin does its benefit by causing a cascade of chemical reactions, and it works by this one mechanism. But cannabis works by a bunch of different mechanisms, and they're all interrelated. And it wasn't until really 1999 that they actually understood that the body is controlled by a kind of an internet system called the endocannabinoid system. And all the cells in your body have these receptors in the cell wall for different hormones and things. So, for instance, your cells have receptors for testosterone and estrogen and, different hormones that are produced in your body. And they also have receptors for morphine and opiates, and also receptors for cannabinoids. And these receptors only bind onto the things they're supposed to bind onto. So estrogen receptors only bind on to estrogen, and cannabinoid receptors only bind on to cannabinoids.
Dr. Allen,
yes.
We have a couple of callers who are waiting to talk to you. If you'll hold on for a moment.
All right.
Good afternoon, caller. You're on live. Hello?
Hello?
Oh, still there?
Hello?
Yes, caller, you still there?
Yes, I'm here. Ever since I was, I'm 51 years old now. Ever since I was a young boy, I read in some magazines, and I heard that prolonged use on a biweekly basis or more than that would cause physical damage to the brain itself and would end up with a person being paranoid, maybe not to the point to where they'd have psychosis or, that kind of thing, but prolonged use on a semi-weekly basis. Are there any studies now that refute the earlier studies that we heard, growing up as kids and young adults? Because I've heard it all my life that, smoking this drug or however you chew it or whatever is bad for you and difficult and has an effect on your brain, especially later in life. So are there any studies that indicate otherwise now, or is this part of the big propaganda machine? And as far as that question in regard to drugs and how they affect people and make them go seek other relationships with other kinds of people, I'm not even sure that should be addressed, being that we already know that guy was a racist, and they said that about lots of different drugs, but
right.
Cocaine in particular, they said that about too, that it made the men more aggressive and they would rape people, and so forth and so on.
Right.
But my point is that is there a difference in the studies that they had then and now, as opposed to what's come out recently?
Okay. Well, the studies, virtually every accusation that the government has ever made since 1937 regarding cannabis has been exactly the opposite of what the truth is. And there were claims that it would cause you to be slow and lethargic and non-productive. and certainly there's some of this in every population slice that you pick up out of. There's people that aren't going to measure up, but there's no studies at all that show that there's any brain damage, and there's lots of studies that show that brain cells are actually preserved with cannabis. And Carl Sagan used marijuana. So and 40% of industrialized populations smoke cannabis on a regular basis or semi-regular basis. So if it caused you to be schizophrenic, then 40% of our population would be schizophrenic, and we know that's not true. And there's no association at all with schizophrenia. The government has talked all kinds of craziness about all kinds of things. For instance, driving. There's this general consensus that smoking cannabis will make you dangerous behind the wheel. But the studies don't show that. I have a study before me right now. It's an NIH study, a National Institute of Health. It was done in March of 2010, and it's labeled Sex Differences in Effects on Marijuana and Simulated Driving Performance. And the conclusion is basically gibberish, but they weren't able to conclude that marijuana made you a bad driver. So they basically said that this study enhances the current literature by identifying distracted driving as particularly problematic under the influence of marijuana. And so they really didn't come up with anything negative, but if you read the paper and look at the table 2 shows emergency response and time to reaction of the first response, and they had males and females that did not smoke, and then they had the same group of people that after they did smoke, and it shows that the reaction time in males was 13.5 seconds when they didn't smoke, and when they did smoke, the reaction time was actually 12.4 seconds. So it went from 13.5 to 12.4. They had faster reactions using cannabis. And this is an NIH study. It shows that in this thing, the safe avoidance, if you didn't smoke, it was 12.5%. If you did smoke, it was 18.2%. So the safe avoidance of accidents was actually increased in this particular study. So there's a lot of what happens is they make accusations, and it's a racist thing. To prove racism, you have to disprove all their accusations one by one. And so what they do is they give you a set of accusations, and then once you prove those things wrong, they say, well, oh, no, we didn't really mean that. It's because of this other reason. And then you have to prove that. And so once you disprove all of their accusations, then the only thing that's left is, well, they must be doing it because it's racism. And that's exactly what cannabis is.
Dr. Allen, you have another caller waiting. I'm going to bring the caller in.
Yes.
Caller, you're on the line live. You have a question or a comment for Dr. Allen?
Dr. Allen?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. How can I help you?
What I wanted to say is I am a blind woman, and I was wondering what kind of effect does marijuana actually have on, I guess you could say the rejuvenation of nerve cells in the eye, I guess, the optic nerve or whatever like that. Because a lot of people say that, tell me that I should go, in colloquial terms, I should go and smoke a blunt. Okay? But I don't, I'm not the type to really go on and do kind of things like that. I have optic neuropathy.
Okay.
in both eyes due to pseudotumor cerebri and extreme high blood pressure.
All right. Well, that's a very serious problem, and I can't obviously recommend marijuana that would help that because they don't allow studies to study that, so there's no information that would be helpful to you. So although it might be helpful, and there's no question it does lower the intraocular pressure for people that have glaucoma, and it is an antioxidant and has a lot of anti-inflammatory effects, and that may as well help you, but no doctor could actually tell you that it would be beneficial. But I can tell you it won't hurt you, and it has been shown to be helpful in other eye diseases. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I was just wondering, and because I was just wondering. And another, I wanted to make a comment on what you were saying earlier about like the studies about how it really doesn't hurt people and people that use it like on a regular basis, and that how in my mind I see is the studies that they do on actual people is they focus on the negative so that you won't do it, and that I know a lot of functioning people that smoke marijuana. Their whole 9-to-5 jobs, they take care of their families. They're not out doing all kinds of crazy things. They live productive lives. And I figured they focus on the people that abuse it recreationally, instead of just focusing on those that are productive, So that's how I see it. I just wanted to make a comment on that too. So.
I think what you say has a lot of truth. A lot of the problem with marijuana is the people that don't understand it, have never tried it, the only thing that they can understand is alcohol. And so they relate a marijuana inebriation similar to an alcohol high. And it's completely different, and you don't smoke pot and then go home and beat your wife. It's not that. It's a calming drug, and there's really no studies that show that that marijuana causes schizophrenia. But there's no, since they don't allow the studies, there's no real studies that show that marijuana is helpful. And so my opinion is it doesn't really matter how sick you are, how mentally ill you are. If you give a person with mental illness cannabis, it will make them more calm and not more agitated. And so that's my personal opinion, but that cannot be proven in the United States because they won't allow medical study of this.
Isn't that horrific?
So and the cannabinoid science is on its infancy. The mechanism of action is so very complex, it's really hard for people to understand it. Even scientists have difficulty grasping all the mechanisms of action and how it works. And what I can say, there's no question that in the future there will be cannabinoids that we give our children that don't get you high and have great medicinal effect and will have greater effect on treating attention deficit hyperactivity troubles than any of the medicines that are currently used today, and that in the future we will look at giving these people amphetamines. They're currently being treated with amphetamines. We will look at that just like they look at people putting, it'd be just like putting leeches on people that they used to do. It'd be an archaic practice that's no longer acceptable. medical science.
Thank you, caller, for your question and your comment. Stay listening. Dr. Allen, you do have another caller.
Okay.
Hello, caller. You're live.
Hello.
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 Can you hear us?
How can I help you? What's your question?
Really, it's not a question. It was more or less a comment for your previous callers. Me being a marijuana consumer myself, I'm gonna put it to you like this: for all those who are talking about the negative effects of marijuana, the paranoia, that's actually mental. It's on you, the consumer. If you're paranoid about something, it's going to be even that more heightened. So if you're paranoid about people knowing that you smoke weed, yeah, you're going to be paranoid like, oh, man, they know I smoke weed. And if you're going to try the marijuana, do not get street value marijuana because it's not good for you. It's been treated. Most of it's always been treated, which turns it to a drug. And other than that, what I know about being a cannabis consumer, it's very relaxing and it's good for your health. I mean, like as the doctor's already telling you, yeah, it's very good for you. I know people who've been smoking marijuana for years, and guess what? They don't even look like their age. You know, it actually really is a proven fact to me. I know somebody that's pushing 40 and still look like they're 20.
Well, I believe that is true. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen family members who were not allowed to smoke and had to just socially drink and I can tell you from personal experience that those people look a lot older than I do, and I rarely drink at all, and I use cannabis at night, mostly before I go to bed.
Yeah, and
so
what you need to explain to the people is why our American government made cannabis illegal. Is because it's a plant that they can't control and actually market and make a profit off of because it's easily grown in your own home, in your own backyard, and they can't control it. So
exactly
they actually outlawed it so they can actually get funds to start the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That's why. But the thing was, the FBI don't even enforce the law. It's up on the state, from each state to state, to actually enforce the law or penalize for the law. And it's really not really criminalized. But it's a law in the books that make it a criminal act to possess an X amount of marijuana. Whereas in, like how you were saying, alcohol is legal across the whole United States, globally, basically, which is one of the most toxic forms of any type of, let's put it like this, it's the most toxic chemical you could ever put in your body or consume outside of smoking marijuana. Marijuana is not toxic to you.
That's exactly right. You know, the United States has become a nation of felons. And when you make somebody a felon, after they get out, you don't have to give them social support, so they don't get SSI or food stamps or a lot of other social support. So basically, when they put a person in prison, they remove that person from the social roster, and the government doesn't have to support them anymore. And so since 1937, 16 million years of prison sentences have already been served by marijuana criminals. The United States has 5% of the world population, but we imprison 25% of all the people in prison are in prison here in the United States. So really, the anti-marijuana laws are a social support or a welfare system for the criminal justice system. And so the judges and lawyers and bail bondsmen and all the other people who are involved in the court system, and this includes the drug testers too, they don't want cannabis to be made legal because 90% of all the people that are in prison for drugs are in prison because of marijuana. Marijuana comprises the largest amount of people arrested over, and most of it's over simple possession. There's over 800,000 people arrested every year in the United States. It's like one every 6 seconds. And so, since there's been 16 million years of prison sentences already served, if we doubled that, would that be enough? If we tripled it, would it be enough? What is the end point of this war on drugs, which is a war on our own society? So, black people are arrested in a disproportionate rate compared to other races for marijuana. And it's always been a racist thing. The first marijuana laws were in El Paso, Texas in 1914 and were aimed actually at the Mexicans. And then they later morphed this into they could arrest the black people in New Orleans, the jazz musicians. And so it's always been used as a racist tool to dehumanize people. And so when you smoke pot, the society has been told that these people are worthless, they're of no account, they're criminals, and they dehumanize these people, and this dehumanization is part of the racism thing, and the dehumanization allows them to do cruel things and justify their cruelty to these people. And so that's my opinion of this whole thing. It's time to stop this insanity. You shouldn't be sending people to prison for smoking the medicine because it helps them sleep.
You know,
not
Doctor,
yes, ma'am.
This hour has gone by so fast. 7 or 8 minutes. And the callers that we have online, your mics are up. If you have any short comment or a short question for Dr. Allen, do so now.
I just have one more statement. Me being an insomniac, I can really protest that marijuana does help you sleep. If you only have to smoke a whole J, just a couple of hits and boom, you're out like a light. So, I don't understand how they can say marijuana is a gateway for most drugs. Marijuana is not the gateway to any other harder drug. What they fail to realize, that person, they already done harder drugs. They just use marijuana from time to time as well as whatever drug that they're on. But marijuana is not a drug, it's a plant. And after this show, I'm going to spark me up one. All right, y'all be easy. God bless.
Fran?
Yes.
I'm just going to say this to the doctor. Thank you very much for your courage, for coming forward. And because I know your colleagues do not like what you're doing right now. And I just want to thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that actually doctors that do talk about this are at risk. And it's not a paranoia. These people hate marijuana, and they want it kept illegal.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
They hate things like I think that they should hate things like cinnamon and nutmeg and everything else. You know. But I do appreciate you. I think you should have your own show to advocate what you're talking about.
That's
an excellent, great suggestion. Yeah. I think I had to Dr. Allen before the show.
And I know a lot of people that would back you. Mhm.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I would definitely like to stop some of these myths about marijuana.
Dr. Allen, this is Michelle Renee, and what I find most interesting, because I will be honest in saying that I don't smoke cannabis. So this program has been very educational for me. I don't look down on it. It's just not something that I've personally done. Now, have I in the past? Yeah, I have as a young person. And so what I find interesting is that this discussion is not about the misuse of cannabis. And the reason why I say that, based on what you're telling me, cannabis that is not tainted with any other drug is good for you. But we know today on the street, kids are getting what I call junk. You know, it's like trash weed because it's laced with other things to get them to be addicted.
That's not true at all.
Okay.
The government does studies on all the pot it confiscates, and the pot that it confiscates is by and large not contaminated with anything. Now, there are some reports of pot contaminated with different things, especially in England. They were selling some pot that had glass beads in it because it made it look more potent. But there is some of that happening. But for the most part, people aren't lacing it with any other drug to get people addicted. That's another fallacy.
Okay, and I'm seeing that's good because there are people just like myself who don't indulge or don't know enough about it, and that's where rumors come about and misconceptions.
No, you don't. You don't use or participate because you do not have a medical recommendation.
True,
Ms. Shayla.
True enough. So, but what don't you just love how Fran just cleans all that up? But what I will say is that it helps to clear up the misconceptions that people will have, especially for those that are not users.
Exactly.
Well, the stores in California do a lot of testing on their products. So if you go to a store in California, you're going to get something that's fairly guaranteed to be safe. I mean, nothing is 100%, but you can definitely guarantee that you're going to go get something that will have good medicinal effect and won't hurt you if you go to a California store.
Dr. Allen, I want to thank you for this week and last week, and I'm going to thank you now for the weeks coming up because I know you're going to be back and we're going to be talking about that. Guest, I thank you. Thank you for your input, and those of you who are listening, I hope you can take away something positive from this and that you will do the research for yourself and find out about marijuana using this as your springboard. So it's about that time for us to leave. I want to thank you. Please join us again on Friday, 6 o'clock, for
Miss Shayla Renee, the entertainment edition of Divas 2.
Yes, indeed. And so we're going to leave now, and I think we're going to let Curtis Mayfield take us home. Curtis, do that? Yes, indeed. No thing on me.
I've met many people over the years, and in my opinion, I have found that people are the same everywhere. They have the same fears, shed similar tears, die in so many years. The oppressed seem to have suffered the most in every continent, coast to coast. Now our lives are in the hands of the pusher man. We break it all down in hopes that you might understand how to protect yourself. Don't make no profit for the man. I'm so glad I've got my own. So glad that I can see my life a natural high. The man can't put no thing on me. I'm so glad I've got my own. So glad that I can see my life a natural high. The man can't put no thing on me. You're something kind of funny. How the man take your money. He's shrewd as he can be. In such a way you'll never see. natural high has died. The weak are turned to dope and put all aside their hope. And I'm so glad I've got my own, so glad that I can see my life a natural high. The man can't put no thing on me. I'm so glad I've got my own, so glad that I can see my life a natural high. The man can't put no thing on me. Twinkling, twinkling grace, they do all sorts of things. While you're in a mining sea, your conscience is only peace.
Hello?
Hello?
You still there?
Yeah.
We're still here.
Hey, I'm fine.
We're in the record mode. And I just wanted to once again thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Allen. And like I said, we're in the record mode. And those who look into the archives and pull the show up will hear our comments. So thank you all. It was a great show. Dr. Allen, if it's okay, I will call you tomorrow and we will talk. All right?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for putting that
appreciate
word
your help.
out. People need that information. You know.
All right, God bless.
God bless you all. Have a good evening.
All right, bye-bye.
Night, night.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
All right, fellow.
Good night.